Happy Wednesday, everybody. This is so much fun. Again, I have got the most amazing team from Nashville, Tennessee, Matt and Barney Burnett, the Burnett Group with eXp Realty. They are top producing team agents, but they're also husband and wife, so it's really fun to see them interact. But we are here again for a weekly update, and they have brought an amazing special guest. So I'm going to be the bobbing head today. I'm going to tee it up and hand it over to Matt. Matt, let's kick it off. Tell me who you got.
Yes, thank you. So today we've got a good friend of ours, Grant Hammond with the Metropolitan Brokers. Grant is an expert in the short-term rental industry here in Nashville, and we've relied on him for a lot of resources and information. So thank you, Grant, for coming by, and maybe can explain a little. We have clients, I'm sure you do as well, that ask, what is a short-term rental? What's the differences? Let's get a basic background and kind of get started with that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's always good to start with a 10,000-foot overview. The difference between a long-term rental and a short-term rental, it varies county to county, but in Davidson County in Nashville, where most of these are located, it simply means renting for less than 30-day period. Anything over 30 days is a long-term rental, does not require a specific permit to operate. Anything under 30 days is a short-term rental and requires a short-term rental permit that also comes with a few privileges and taxes to pay as well.
Privileges of the tax pay. Yeah.
I like that positive spin there.
That's right. Yeah, you get a few perks.
So we know Nashville's become really hot, with the short-term rentals over the past few years, in good ways and bad ways, if you watch the media. But who is coming and who is staying at these short-term rentals?
It's evolved over the years. So short-term renting really got started in earnest around 2014-15 and has picked up quite a lot of steam through 2019. It was mostly in the very beginning, singles, couples, and small groups that kind of came to meet in Nashville, those who were alternatively considering hotels, but decided to try this newfangled Airbnb. But by 2019, it was very large groups. It was corporate travel. It was family vacations and meetups. I think as you've seen Airbnb change over the last 5 years, so have the types of people that use Airbnb. For instance, I never thought my parents would stay at an Airbnb. I thought they'd stay at a Hilton or a Holiday Inn until the end, but they now have stayed at Airbnbs when they go to different cities.
Yeah, we've got some clients. Everybody always is asking about the short-term rental and what that looks like. Of course, Matt and I have a few short-term rentals and long-term rentals as well. I know that you have both short-term and long-term rentals. Tell us what you feel like the benefits of the short-term rentals are versus the long-term rental.
As an investment.
Yeah, as an investment.
Like from an investment standpoint. Yeah, from an investment standpoint. Sorry.
Yeah, it's certainly, first and foremost, it makes more money than long-term rentals do in the Nashville market. When it's positioned in the right part of town, it has the appropriate number of bedrooms and bathrooms. These short-term rentals have been known to gross over $170,000 a year in some cases. You're limited to 4 bedrooms on a permit and to a max of 12 occupancy. So these are not the 8 and 10 bedroom houses you see at the beach. The city has limited what you can do and where you can do it. And so the main difference is for these really well located units, your gross income far outstrips what you could do as a long-term rental. So that's what makes them really attractive. There are some taxes that you have to pay along with that. So you pay the hotel motel tax just like the hotels do. And there's a little bit of a privilege tax in there as well on the personal property inside. Management's typically a little more expensive as well, but you almost always come out way on top on a short-term rental as compared to a long-term rental on the exact same property.
Okay. And I know you kind of hit on this too. Obviously from a standpoint of short-term versus long-term, they can be a lot more lucrative, but you hit on the fact that they are regulated by permitting and there's certain things you can and can't do. For somebody new, like thinking, I want to get into this Airbnb, this short-term rental game, what would be just a few things that you would say, like be what, when you go to get in, like just a handful of tips of like, if you're going to get into this, be aware of XYZ.
Sure. So having represented nearly 300 short-term rental transactions since 2015, I have seen a massive evolution in terms of where you're allowed to do these by law in the city. Since 2014, there have been 35 new laws specifically pertaining to short-term rentals. Some of those have been nothing burgers, and some of those have shifted the plate tectonics underneath the actual industry. One of those happened in 2016, which disallowed non-owner occupied short-term rentals in residentially zoned areas. So anything that's a R or RS zoned, which is the vast majority of Nashville, was no longer able to be short-term leased by a non-owner occupant. I guess I should go back and say that there are two different permit types now. There used to be three. Back in the beginning when they created short-term rentals in 2014, there used to be type 1, type 2, and type 3 permits. And there used to be a 3% cap per population center. And that system went away in 2016 and became simply non-owner occupied and owner occupied. So all of the new laws that you've seen over the last 4 years typically pertain mostly to the non-owner occupied. And that's the investors who don't live in it as a primary residence. And that's the vast majority of who is short-term renting in Nashville as well. Most of these properties are whole home rentals, as opposed to the owner-occupieds that may just have a room or two rooms or part of a house as well. So the landscape has changed, and if you're new to it, it probably looks fairly complicated to you when you start reading the rules, the regulations, the where you can, the where you can't. If you work with somebody who does this on a daily basis, it's actually really simple. The city has really told us where short-term rentals can be, what they can be near, or what they cannot be near, and it has narrowed down where you need to be looking into very specific parts of town on very specific zoned parcels. So it's made it actually easy, even though it's 35 laws, it's made it easier. We know where we're looking now. We know what type of property it needs to be. So then it's just about evaluating the return. What is projected on the income versus what's projected on a long-term rental at the same place, and looking at some future appreciation in that specific part of town.
Awesome. So yeah, that's great. So just anybody that wants to go buy, you can't just go out and buy a house and just close to downtown and say, okay, I'm going to short-term rental this. You really need to, it's got to be a very specific location or a very specific zoning. And so you need to work with a professional that knows what they're doing to help you guide through that process.
Yeah, over the last couple of years.
Said that, Matt.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. I'm glad that Matt said that, because I definitely wanted to point that out. When you're choosing your professionals, this is why I emphasize over and over again, you have to choose top professionals like Matt and Marty, like Grant here now, who could advise what to do. You've got to go to the top people that are going to make it a lot easier, because making mistakes, or as you're talking about not knowing what you're doing, could be detrimental. And so it's so important to make sure you're aligning yourself with people that are connected to the right resources. And that's why this is such a great platform here to share this information. And Grant, I'm so glad that you're sharing your expertise, because that knowledge is power. Please continue.
I was going to say, anecdotally, there are a lot of transactions that happen in Nashville where people have bought a house thinking they're going to short-term rent it, only to learn that they're not going to be able to, and end up selling it and buying another property. So that's a costly mistake to make.
I was going to say, that's a cha-ching. That's a hefty mistake right there.
Yeah, that's a costly mistake. We call those the Zillow misled buyers, because in the listing it may say would make a great Airbnb, but the listing agent has no idea if it could be or couldn't be. And then they go and buy that house off of Zillow or what other platform, only to learn that they can't get the permit. And it happens more often than you would think. It's no longer surprising at this point.
Oh, I know. I tell people, I'm one of my big taglines is it matters who you choose. When you're investing in real estate, most of the time, those are people's largest assets. I mean, that's the thing you spend the most money on an average person. And if you're looking to invest, you definitely need to make sure that you have somebody that you trust that is going to, know this market. And I know it's changed a lot. And I think that's so interesting. I don't know how you sleep keeping up with, especially when all that was evolving. Matt and I had some short-term rentals at that time as well, trying to keep up with the laws and the way they were changing and everything. It seems like they've kind of stabilized, but I know that, the laws are forever changing in and out, but it sounds like we've got a good grasp on where you can and can't do that now and what the rules are. So we just have to learn how to work within those rules. But I think, and you can speak to this, what your opinion is, as Nashville grows and evolves as well. They could, these could change, hopefully for the better, over time as well. But, for now, the safe bet on short-term rentals is really, from what I'm hearing you say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Grant, but Grant, has a lot to do with the zoning. That's what it's all boils down to at this point.
Yeah, most of it zoning related. Some of it is what you're located next to. For instance, a year and a half ago, Colby Sledge, who's one of our 40 fine council members, and that's another important point to bring up. Nashville has 40 council members. We're the third largest city council in the United States behind New York and Chicago. So Los Angeles has less, Atlanta has less, Dallas has less. We've got 40 fine individuals who have their own opinions and special interests. And so we tend to get a lot more rules and laws passed in Nashville than other cities of similar population. So if you look at Kansas City and Austin and Charlotte and all the other places we get it compared to, they have councils that have 9 to 11 members, and they get a lot less laws than we get. So I expect there to continue to be a lot of change. Colby Sledge made a rule a year and a half ago that said you cannot have a non-owner occupied short-term rental within 100 feet of a church, school, daycare, or park. He did that by using an archaic beer law that was first passed in 1907, prior to Prohibition, and just took out the word beer and put in non-owner occupied short-term rental. And for whatever reason, it passed city council through the process of, vote trading, for lack of a better term. And with no research, no rhyme, no reason. We even had churches come to the city council meeting saying, no, listen, we want out of town visitors. They're likely to come to church on Sunday, and we don't discriminate against you if you don't happen to be a permanent resident of Nashville. So you get those kind of things happening, and so you've got to pay close attention to those things. But I spend a lot of my time going to city council meetings. I happen to serve on the legislative committee for the Greater Nashville Realtor Association. So it's just part of my DNA at this part. I'm sort of plugged in like a circuit board at this, there's no getting away from it.
That's a full-time job right there, but 40 agendas is what we're dealing with in Nashville. So again, I think it's good that people don't know. They need to be educated on what's happening in our city. If you're doing business there or just visiting there and wonder why, prices go up and there aren't places to stay, being aware of the process, I think, is huge for people. And, being educated voters and knowing what people stand for. And make sure you're aligned to what that looks like. 40 people. That's 40 agendas. That's huge, especially when you compare it to those huge cities that have much less government. So Nashville's heavily governed. So that also says that, like you said, things could change, ongoing, lots of laws, lots of regulations. But where do you see, so what do you see as far as area-wise in Nashville? I know that you have a lot of different hands and developments and properties. I've toured some of your properties. They're fantastic. One thing I would love to touch on before we get done is the Airbnb hotel that you've got in the works. It's going to be done really soon. And I just think that's such a killer concept. So tell us about that. And you see us seeing more of those concepts versus, some of the, I know detached is not really a thing right now with that, but then more of the smaller complexes. Do you see more people moving towards this Airbnb hotel style to get around some of these laws and regulations? Kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so because single family homes are truly not an option anymore, density has become king in the short-term rentals. And so that it comes in two forms, either as condominium buildings or as large townhome developments. And there really are two types of buyers. There are those that really like their private property and don't want common access. And to a certain extent, COVID-19 has led some of those buying behaviors too. And townhomes with private rooftop decks have become very desirable and will likely retain their desirability. So instead of having the small yard and a single family home, your private outdoor space is now on your rooftop. And if that rooftop comes with a view of downtown, well, that's the sizzle that sells the steak right there. And that will lead you to much higher bookings at much higher rates, for sure. But the second type of development that we're starting to now see is the condotel / Airbnb hotel model. This is a model that if you've been to Disney property, you're probably familiar with, that have they're more of a timeshare model down there. These are not timeshares. You own the real estate 365 days a year, and you have the use of it if you'd like to, or you can put it through the on-site management program, or you can manage it yourself. And that's what Airbnb, VRBO, and all the other platforms. I mean, there's 27 platforms now that support short-term renting, including hotels.com, which is amazing to me. Travelocity, Expedia, all of those now support short-term listings on there. So you can now self-manage fairly easily and not have to go through the buildings management program if you so desire. But I think that model is going to be coming to Nashville more and more as it becomes more difficult to develop short-term rentals and you get into higher density, more expensive land. I think you'll see this Airbnb hotel concept another 4 or 5 times before it's all said and done. And what it gives you is that sort of lock it and leave it lifestyle with that desired walkability of being able to get to Broadway and back on a walk or a scooter and not have to jump in the Uber or take your car. And that really is one of the big draws of Nashville. Our downtown, if you've been here for any length of time, has developed extraordinarily quickly from a place that you would not go. When I was in high school in the 90s, you did not go downtown for anything. You truly did. It was peep shows, adult bookstores, strip clubs. Like it was like New Orleans North at a certain point.
I wasn't even allowed to go down there. My parents wouldn't even let me drive downtown.
we seriously did. And so over the last 25 years, though, talk about a massive change from a place you wouldn't go to a place that is family friendly, fun, that you don't have to worry about, personal safety, unlike a lot of other major cities that are tourist attractions like New Orleans or Las Vegas or New York. There's this public safety issue that Nashville's done a very good job of handling. And so being able to walk to downtown and enjoy everything that downtown has to offer, not just music and bars and that kind of stuff. There's new museums that have opened up. The African American Music Museum just opened up last week downtown at the old convention center site. There's another country music sort of museum opening up next month. That's a mini Pearl museum. There's all kinds of things to do here. That's not just going to a bar and drinking a PBR and pretending like you're a country music song for the day. So there's a lot of fun things to do.
Yeah, we take our kids downtown all the time. Matt and I have 3 kids, and we were just down there Sunday after church, having brunch, and walking up and down the streets of Nashville and going different places with the kids was not something that you and I experienced, or Matt, as kids growing up here in Nashville. It is funny though. My daughter, after one of our visits downtown to eat, we're walking back to the car, and the Pedal Tavern's rolling by, and she's just dancing, and she looks at me and goes, "Mom, for my next birthday, I want to do the Pedal Tavern." I'm like, I don't know. So there is always that.
I'll tell you from experience. So I did the Pedal Tavern with a group of people. Nashville's a little bit hilly. You're going to work kind of hard about half the time, and the other half of the time you're going to be for a little ride down a hill. Break a sweat.
Well, you're burning off
be careful what you wear. Don't dress nice.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that's such incredible information, Grant. Thank you so much. Every time I talk with the Burnett's, it makes me miss Nashville more and more. And now you just did it again. So I will see you in the spring. But Really amazing information. And again, just want to reiterate why you call the professionals. Everything that you guys shared here today should let people know, go ahead, order your dog food online. But when you're talking about properties and when you're talking about even short-term rentals and understanding the zoning and everything that goes with it, you've got to talk to the professionals. In this group right here are the top professionals. Reach out. They can advise you. Even if you have questions outside of Nashville and other areas around the country, they have experts and advisors in every area. So definitely call. You can reach me. I will get you in touch with any of them. And thank you so much for incredible information today. Look forward to what's ahead. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Grant. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys again. I just saw Marty the other day at a showing, so it's good to see you again.
I got one more prediction. So this time last year, short-term rentals were on fire pre-COVID. Then that hit and it slowed down, and now they're really starting to come back. What's it look like 5 years from now? Is Nashville going to be still the it city?
Ooh.
People.
Listen, as long as people still want to come and visit Nashville, I don't see any way on God's green earth that short-term renting curtails in any way or even slows down. I see it accelerating on almost a parabolic scale with the number of people choosing Airbnbs over hotel experiences. And you see that right now with the price of Airbnb stock. They went public during a pandemic, during the worst possible time ever, and their stock price is up over $300 a share. So Wall Street agrees that the Airbnb model is here to stay for a very long time. And I wouldn't be surprised if in 10 years from now, you don't even say the word hotel anymore when you talk about traveling for work or for pleasure.
Yeah, it's definitely evolving. Travel is evolving, and I think you're spot on. I don't think the Airbnb or short-term rental model is going anywhere. And I'm excited. I had a great time viewing one of your developments for a client the other day. It's fabulous, and we're in the short-term rental game. You're in it, and I think we're in it to stay as well. So I'm excited to see how things evolve and where we go. And Grant, you're always like a plethora of knowledge. We always enjoy chatting with you, and you're so on top of this. I mean, you're our short-term rental guru, and I'm just Matt and I know are really blessed to have you in our network and to have you as a colleague and a friend. So thank you so much.
Here's the good news, right? To answer Matt's question about predicting it, we know exactly what the worst possible case scenario looks like now because we just went through it. So we've established the word. So
right?
And how many of these Airbnbs went into foreclosure? None. How many of them traded hands? Maybe 5% of them. Everyone else was able to stick it out without much of an issue. And I think that what you'll see over the next 5 years as travel returns is you will see quite the ramp up in rental rates because Nashville, because they've restricted where you can put these, will not be able to keep up with supply. So demand will outstrip supply, and we'll start to see some incredibly high rental rates. And we'll be joking in 2025, Matt, we used to joke about the $1,000 a night rate back in 2018. We'll be joking about the $2,000 a night rate in 2025.
I hope so.
Deal. I'm in.
Awesome perspectives, great information. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Amy.